So we are going live, and let's technically, if we are already on live, ladies and gentlemen, if you are already with me right now, yes, we are on YouTube, and please go to tinyurl.com slash talk about life or youtube.com slash c slash talk about life, and you've got there. I'm not quite sure if you can see this. There's a huge reflection, and we are also live on Facebook. Yes, we are. And ladies and gentlemen, you can always go to Facebook group, the Platinum Platform, the Platinum Platform by GDM Metropolis Productions of Singapore. All right, without further ado, I'd like to thank the viewers. Either now you're on with us live or you're going to be with us later on uh, at replay or on podcast, on radio. I would like to thank you so much. Today is the 12th of May 2022, and it is 9:12 p.m. right here in Singapore, and we are broadcasting live to you from Singapore and also from California. I'd like to welcome Colette. She's my co-host of today, and we will have a very serious topic, but we will talk about the topic a little bit later on. Let's welcome her onto the platform, and this is the third time she's with us. Last year she was with us, particularly as a special guest for the International Summit for Humanity. How are you, Colette, since we last met in November the 27th,
Oh, I'm
2021?
I'm doing really, really well. Thank you so much for having me back. I'm really excited about the show today and this topic. I think it's a really, really interesting topic. A lot of people are following this trial and things like that. So I'm really
Yeah.
excited to talk about it. And I'm really been doing really well. Still in California, San Diego. It's beautiful here. So
Wow.
yeah.
Tell us about what's happening over there. Update us. You're the co-host today, Colette.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I mean, I live in San Diego. It's really peaceful. It's a beach
Yeah.
city. So very laid back lifestyle. People are
Wow.
up and down in like flip-flops and shorts. Or they'll wear like slacks with a button down and flip-flops.
Wow. Wow. And
So it's a very
it's
laid
like
back
it's
life.
that's the sunshine state, right?
Yes.
Yes. And Colette, would you like to update us since the last time we met you? You've got some projects there, right? That you're developing. Would you like to share with the viewers?
Sure, and I'll talk a little bit about my work as we talk about the trial too, because I think
Okay.
it just weaves in so beautifully. Looking at Johnny's background and childhood, and looking at Amber's background and childhood, and the reasons why they
Hmm.
had such a tumultuous relationship, and why there was so much abuse happening.
Wow.
It's very, very clear for me, from working with so many people how this happened because there's some wounds and things that they didn't heal before
Yep.
going into the relationship that they were able to attract each other. And
Yep.
so that's a big part of what I help people with is looking at the past wounding, looking at the beliefs and the stories and the fears, all of these underlying subconscious programs that we pick up as children because we want to be loved and accepted by our parents and or our primary caregivers, and we don't even realize that that's what's running us. We don't even realize that we even have these programs, and so then we end up in these relationships wondering why we're
Wow.
there, wondering why we're staying.
And it goes like a
um,
vicious cycle, right? You can't come out of it.
yeah, yeah, and then you get addicted to these relationships. It's just like any other drug. And so these are all things that the Inner Coaching Academy
Yeah.
helps with. And so we have a group program called the Core Encounter,
You
where
want
there's
to like
three.
to repeat clearly and slow down a bit regarding your academy and the coaching program and where people
Yeah,
can find it?
yeah. So the Inner Coaching Academy is our group coach, or where you can find most of our work. And so we
Mm,
have something called the Core Encounter, which is our group coaching program. And there's three parts.
yeah.
So there's core connection, which is where you dive deep into these things, the wounds and the fears and the
Mm,
beliefs and the stories and the conflicts, all of these things that we don't know are there, that end up causing the addictions, that end up
wow.
causing the bad relationships, that end up causing these cycles of poor health. And
Yeah, and also normalizing them and thinking that they are expected of any relationship, right?
yeah, exactly, because they're not. It's just our
Yeah.
childhood
Is
programming
is
running.
your view of the world? Yes, is you have been programmed by past visions, visuals, experiences, what you say see around you, your parents, that you think that that is the kind of normal life. Colette, that's a great opening. You can go to the Inner Coaching Academy by Colette at Facebook. Is there where they can find you at your Facebook?
Yeah, it's just Colette Gallagher. My name's on the screen, Colette Laurie Gallagher.
Yeah,
And then also
and
the
then that's
core.
where they can find your.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's where they can find you. So, Colette and ladies and gentlemen, we are already on live on Facebook, the Platinum platform. We're there now. And today's topic, Colette, I've known you for over a year because you came in end of January 2021, where we had a very in-depth uh, kind of interview with you, where you revealed and shared with us some of these historical experiences that has kind of left a mark in you. And today's topic is violence against women. And when you say violence, not only it encompasses physical violence, it could be emotional, psychological, different ways, right? Spiritual too, right? People taking over your cults, isn't it? So we're talking about violence against women, physical or mental, and also talking about why women uh, are not believed. Okay, so and I'd like to share the background of this topic that we have. I remember the YouTube movement started in 2018. It came up with quite a few people, and I think I remember very clearly Rose McGowan is one of the women who came out very strongly in Hollywood. And then a lot of people coming out, they say it doesn't only exist in Hollywood, it exists in many industries, it exists across women of different color, a different faith, even different age. And of course, not only women, but teens, and also during 2021, this reveal came amongst the young female gymnast, the American young female gymnast from the Olympics. And they actually testified in Congress about their doctor, appointed doctor by the Olympic Committee, the American Olympic Committee, because they needed they are in the gym, right? They need to do a lot of high risk actions, so they always have a doctor to assess them to see if they are okay before or after, etc. So many of these girls, they it was revealed that they were sexually abused by the doctor, and some of them not knowing that it was an abuse at that time because they were so young. Some could be just like preteens, 7 to 13, and they were a few of them were even groomed by the sexual perpetrator, the doctor who says that, oh, I'm in love with you, I'll wait for you when you grow up, when you come back. So a lot of such lies were actually kind of, they have this manipulated vision that, they are in a relationship, but the doctor was saying this over to many of the young girls. So that kind of like blew, I should say, blew the cover about, young girls too, not only women in Hollywood. And I'd like to throw this to you, Colette, as a co-host, because we're going into a very deep topic. And just be as candid as you like about your situation, about your understanding about what happens to a woman, uh, during that, the victimization process, and then after the guilt process, and also like what you say, a lot of things are revealed in the Johnny Depp and Amber trial. The first question for you, Colette, would you like to share your story first as an introduction before we go into uh, more serious questions?
Sure. Yeah, you brought up so many little talking points that I think are really important. But as far as my story goes, my mom was married 4 times, and her first husband was my dad, and then my first stepfather was a cocaine dealer, and so there was a lot of drugs going on in the house.
Mm,
Um, my mom was an addict, and so there was just a lot happening, and I'm like 4 years old. I'm just like a little kid. And my mom, she's a working mom. And I was left alone a lot with
mm,
my stepfather and his family, who was also abusive. And so I was so young that, I felt uncomfortable and it felt weird. But he would ask me to do things. And I was like,
mm,
okay, well, he's big and he's scary. And so I'm just going to do what he asks me to do. And so I did. And so, and then I was left with some family members too who would also violate me sexually. And I just remember being so uncomfortable, but not really knowing what was happening. And then they would tell me not to say anything, or, he's like, don't tell your mom, and I was scared of him because he was physically violent with her. And so,
wow.
yeah, I just remember not wanting to tell anyone because it was confusing. I remember being very confused because he
Mm,
was asking me to like touch him, and he was touching me and doing
mm,
different things. And yeah, I just remember being very uncomfortable with the whole situation, and then not telling anyone, and then not even knowing if it was even a big deal, because little kids,
mm.
they don't even realize, like, okay, this is weird. I've never had
Yeah,
anyone else ask me to do this.
yeah,
But um yeah, it's just very confusing. And so I
yeah,
remember, as growing up, when we finally had like sex education in school, and learning about things, I was like, oh, okay, this
yeah,
wasn't okay. And so I
yeah,
finally told my
yeah.
mom.
How long did
And
that abuse situation last? How long a period did it last?
I don't really remember. I would say 6 months to a year.
Yeah. But there
Yeah.
was, I mean, even that one encounter, even with one encounter, someone encroaching into your sacred space that God has forgiven. As a child, you just kind of knew from your gut feeling that, hey, this is uncomfortable. It's not something I kind of like or can accept, but yet you can't put a word on it because you were so young. And then on top of that, you were kind of warned and threatened, right? So tell me psychologically what kind of effect it had on your mind. Even though, yeah, you're going to school, you're talking to your friends, you're eating normal, you're still interacting. There's one side of you is still normal, right? But there's another side of you. Like a lot of us, when we go through certain things, we just kind of get crushed inside, and we don't know how to verbalize that. And of course, we didn't know it because you were like 4 years old at that time.
Yeah. And then on top of it, I ended up getting taken by
Sexually
child
accused.
well, I was taken by Child Protective Services as well. And so there was a lot happening where it was
Wow. You were
like
like
I
con.
can't
Yeah.
I can't talk, right? So I
Oh.
was I was a very chatty child. I love talking to people. I mean,
Yeah.
I talked to truckers at truck stops. I talked to
Yeah.
everyone. but I always felt so isolated, and I always
Trapped.
felt
Yeah.
like I had to be so careful about what I said because I didn't
Oh
want to get
yes.
taken from my mother,
Yeah.
you
Wow.
know? Because I felt like I had to protect my mother from this abuse. Somehow I thought my little, my little 4-year-old self, or as I got older as a child, I felt like it was my responsibility to protect my mom. And so I wanted to stay with her. And so I didn't want to
Yeah.
tell anyone what was happening at home, because my other stepfathers were also physically abusive as well. So growing up, there was a lot of violence in my house, and I didn't want to tell anyone. And so it was like I didn't want to make friends. I didn't want to have friends over to my house. I didn't want anyone to see my mom and see how mean she was, because my mom was very emotionally abusive towards me, like always yelling at me, calling me names, and it would come out of
Mm.
nowhere. And so I didn't want
Mm.
people to know. It was very embarrassing as a child for her
Yeah.
to just start screaming at me in public.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so there was a lot of hiding on my
Just too
part.
much. It's
Yeah.
just too much for you to handle because life is
Yeah.
just throwing you everywhere. And
Yeah.
you were so young then, and you kind of feel like I don't know. I'm not even sure if there's any word to describe like helpless. So when would you like to share with us, and then we talk a bit about the trial of Johnny Depp and her. Not because we want to talk about the trial, but some of these things that probably bring back your memories and and what are these issues? Would you like to talk about emotionally? Did you feel bitter? Did you feel angry? Did you feel, besides confused, did you feel like you're not worthy? What did it do to you as a being?
Yeah, for me, it was more loneliness. I mean, I
Oh,
was angry, of course. Like I
yeah,
wasn't, I was more angry at my mom for leaving me alone with these people. Because I remember telling, like asking her, like, I don't want to go. Like, I don't want to be here with this person.
wow.
Like, don't leave me here. And she's like, it's okay, you're fine. Like, I gotta go. Because she was working, she had things to do. So she had to leave me there. And so I was really mad at her for choosing these husbands, for leaving me, like for putting me in these situations. So there's a lot of anger and just a lot of loneliness, because I felt like I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't tell people. I had to pretend that everything was okay,
Yeah,
that everything
exactly.
was perfect.
Exactly. And I would like to bring you fast forward to the time whereby you are older, you kind of, I'm not sure if you should use the word confronted her. There was a time that you did tell me that you revealed to her and she didn't believe you at all.
Yeah, when I was like around 10 or 11, I did
Yeah.
bring it up to her. I kind of mentioned it just to see what she would say and see,
Oh,
her reaction. And
yeah.
she did not believe me, because she said, well, why didn't you tell me earlier? Why did you wait till now?
Is it something
That
that
was
you
her
made up
reaction.
for attention?
Yeah.
Oh wow. So how did you feel? Were you further crushed? Were you further angry? And that kind of, did it break the relationship between you and your family?
No, I didn't know what I was expecting from
Mm.
her. Um, I was a little like hurt. I mean, I was very, very hurt, of course,
Mm.
because I expected her to say, "Oh my
Mm.
gosh, like I can't believe that happened," or something. But
Mm.
instead she got very angry, and she told me later it was because of the guilt. Like it was just too much for her to handle. And like the whole situation in the first place was a lot for her to be in
Mm.
that situation, because he was way more violent
She
and abusive
was, yeah. She was also
than
a
he was
victim
even
of
me.
violence at
Yeah.
that time. She
And she
couldn't
just had
know,
a
yeah.
lot of, yeah, a lot of mom guilt, feeling bad. She didn't protect me and take care of me. So it was like too much for her to
So at
even
what age
want
were
to
you
believe.
then that she started to accept the reality?
Yeah, in my 20s,
In your
I
20s.
think she finally believed me, and she apologized, and she still apologizes
Oh,
now. like, I'm so sorry that I put you in that situation. I feel horrible. I can't believe that I did that.
Wow.
Now she's very like apologetic, and she'll talk about it, and she doesn't want to talk about it, but she'll, try to explain things to me and what happened. And now she's very apologetic. But yeah, it wasn't until, I'm in my 20s that she believed me.
So fast forward to the current affairs now. This is the trial between Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. It grips the world. Even I'm in Singapore. I read the news every day. The news as in you are thrown by the internet through YouTube to Facebook and through the Instagram that I subscribe to. The commentaries from the internet, trial by public. People are giving their opinions, etc. Now this is gripping because you've got a hyper superstar like Johnny Depp, good looking, cool, um, you know, that Hollywood macho man. And then you've got Amber Heard, like she was voted at one time the perfect face of the world. The dimensions of the structure of her face, at that time. One of the most beautiful women. And tell us in this particular trial that it's ongoing every day. Every day, we've got new snippets of news coming out. Um, does it bring anything to you in terms of historical memories, the past? Is there anything that you would like to bring, or anything that you would like to further resolve?
So it's interesting because I'm going to be honest. I wasn't really following like anything of the trial, but my whole Facebook news feed is full of clips. And on TikTok, they had it live, so that would show
Yes.
up on my For You. So even though
Mm,
I had no interest in following this trial, it was like
yeah.
in my face. And what
Yeah.
I was seeing was like clips of people making fun of Amber.
Yeah.
And it was like very like pro Johnny Depp. And so I was thinking about how men are abused too. So that was my first thing that
Mm,
came up for me was
yeah.
like, there's a lot of men that are sexually abused and
Mm,
physically abused, but in America, I don't know how it is
yeah.
in Singapore,
Yeah.
but in America, it's like, oh, they make fun of you. Oh, you were beaten by your wife. They kind of brush it off like, oh, you're a man. You're
Yeah.
bigger. You're not abused.
Yeah.
But women are very violent. Like I've seen women being very abusive to men, or even
Yeah.
men being abusive. Stepfathers abusing their
Mm,
stepsons, or
yeah.
and so that's one thing that I think is important to bring to light because
Mm,
people think it's all women that
mm, mm,
are being abused. And
yeah.
so that was the first thing that I thought of was,
Mm,
wow, I thought because based on these few clips
yeah.
that were very probably carefully meticulated, was like, oh wow, Amber is very abusive.
Mm,
And that's all I thought. But then, because I was preparing for this interview, I went through and I kind of read through some of the things that happened in the trial and what happened with Johnny and Amber. And it was really interesting because Amber shared her story with the newspaper a few, like 5 years ago.
mm,
And so Hollywood, everyone had already painted Johnny Depp as an abuser, and he lost
mm,
jobs.
mm,
So there's a lot of things that I didn't know, and I'm just watching these little clips. Amber,
mm,
went to the bathroom on his bed, and Amber's making things up, and Amber was an actress, and she wants attention, and so I'm seeing all of these things,
mm,
and so that was the first thing that I wanted to bring up because men are abused as well.
mm,
So I think it's important. I think they were both abused. I think Johnny, you might he people think, oh well, she wasn't, beaten or bloody or whatever. But, he was very manipulative, and that is a form of abuse. If you have a partner that's telling you, what to wear or making fun of your outfits,
You're saying that you
or
look ugly and making you like feel lousy.
exactly. Yeah, that's abuse. And people don't see it as abuse because there's so many little things. Because
Mm,
parents are like this, right? Our parents tell us these things. Oh, you shouldn't wear
yeah,
that.
exactly.
And so we think these things are love. Honestly, a lot of
Oh,
people.
wow, you're right.
Yeah. Like, oh, they care about me. They don't want me to get hurt, so they want me to cover up. We think it's caring, but it's
Yeah,
actually control and manipulation. And that is a
yeah,
form of abuse.
yeah. And when you
But
do otherwise means you are equal to bad.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wow.
Because in a healthy relationship, your
Yeah,
partner will make you feel good, and if
yeah.
there's something that
Affirmation.
they're, yeah, and if they're worried about you, if they're truly concerned about, what you're wearing, then they'll bring it up in a very respectful manner. Honey, I'm sorry. I just want to mention, your dress. I can see your underwear. I don't know if that's the impression you want to give. There's like nice ways
Yeah,
of saying things, and then there's
yeah.
ways of saying things where it just shuts you down. And then the
Exactly,
accusations,
exactly.
like even jealousy, can bring people closer together, but not when it's like, oh, you're sleeping with your coworker, and I want to go through
Mm,
your phone, and there's like attacks,
mm.
right?
Yeah,
Difference between a healthy relationship where,
yeah,
I'm feeling really jealous right now.
yeah, yeah.
Your coworker is really attractive, and I'm worried. I see there's like a bond there. I'm worried that something might be. There's ways of communicating, but most people aren't taught these ways of communicating, and so they're just in
Mm.
reaction. They feel insecure, they feel upset, and then they're triggered, and then there's yelling, and it's all of it is very unhealthy, but it's also very common, and so people don't even realize that it's
Yeah,
not
you were
healthy.
saying that you wanted to share with us about the Inner Healing Academy and some of the things, subject matter that is covered in this trial. Would you like to highlight a couple of things?
Yeah, so it was really interesting as I was doing this research.
Mm,
I've never really looked into Johnny Depp's background, but
mm,
it came up in the trial that his father it was abused by his mother. He
mm,
was talking about how his mom was very verbally abusive towards his father, and his father was quiet. He never hit her, but his mom would hit his dad. So he grew up in a household where it was normal for the woman to be yelling and violent and hitting and smacking the man. Amber grew up in a household where her dad was abusing drugs. So for her, it was
mm,
very normal to grow up in a household with a man that does drugs. And so now you look at Amber and Johnny, Johnny's doing drugs. He's angry, he's erratic, just like her dad.
mm,
And Johnny's in a relationship where the woman's hitting him,
mm,
yelling, just like his mother.
mm,
So these are the types of things that happen when you don't heal your inner wounds
mm.
and get complete with everything and realize where your patterns come from. And so that's what we do
The
inside of our program.
patterns. Yeah, and you're
Mm-hmm.
right because when you talk about patterns, it's such a powerful word in this context, right? And for example, when Amber, you said Amber grew up in an environment where there are drugs lying around because the dad was a drug pusher, was doing drugs, and that seemed normal. And when there isn't drugs around, then that seemed not normal. And when the
Right.
dad is abusive, snorting drugs, whatever, and the husband does that, she finds that's the place, because it reminded her about childhood, right? And you can't really distinguish the right and the wrong because you are just normalizing it. It's not about right and wrong now, it's about the feeling that, hey, that was it before, then this is it now, so it must be right, isn't it?
Yeah. And
So
what's
that's like a
interesting,
pattern, right?
yeah, and
And
what's
you can't get
interesting
out of
is,
it. Yeah.
yeah, because even if like consciously, hey, it's not good to be with someone doing drugs. Their behavior is erratic. They're doing these things because we have a program of what love is, because
Mm.
it feels
Yes.
like love. It feels like the love that we got from our caregivers. We can consciously know this isn't healthy, right?
Mm.
Because as little kids, we consciously knew it wasn't healthy that our mom was screaming at us,
Mm.
or my dad was like smacking my mom. Like we
Mm.
know that's not okay,
Mm.
but that's like in our subconscious, that's love to us. It
Yeah.
feels like
Yes.
that. insecurity or
Yeah.
that uncertainty or that like
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
our brains actually produce drugs. They produce dopamine, they produce serotonin, they produce different chemicals when we're in these different environments. And
Mm.
then we think that that feeling is
Mm.
love, even if it's really
Mm.
unhealthy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
So,
you are made to believe that's love because that's the only thing you know. Right?
yeah.
And if you only see black color and you only think that the world is black in color, the rest of it is not a color. It's like you only believe in a particular pattern and you go to that kind of cycle again and you can't get out. And the next question, Colette, this is real, it's fascinating, but it's painful for people who are going through it or have gone through it. Like when you go through these reading of the news, I wouldn't say news, but I would say the media, social media that comes onto you. Does it bring anything in you, your memories, your history, any scars before that you had?
Well, as I was saying, I didn't really follow it. And I think maybe that's part of why I don't
Okay.
follow these trials. I don't follow the
Mm,
things like this
mm,
because um, it feels like an invasion of privacy almost. And
mm,
maybe that's my own stuff, not wanting to talk
mm.
about it, not wanting everybody to know. And
Yeah.
so it's like I don't really
Yeah, yeah, and I like
really
to
follow the
bring,
news in general, but
yeah, I like to bring up this particular instance. I don't really follow, but because it's like it's just in your face now. That's the only thing that people are obsessed with. It's almost like the Kim Kardashian dress. It's like the over reporting of something just comes onto you. It kind of like push everything aside. Um, I have this feeling from someone who's not in America, looking at the news out there, and we don't have a lot of abusive news here. Not a lot, snippets of it, things that kind of like drip, drip, drip. Um, um, for whatever reason, because it's not reported, it's just swept under the carpet, people accept it, whatever, it's a cultural thing. So it's not that much in your face. But when you've got a news like that, and there's so much in your face through the social media, I have the feeling that um, just in general, without even knowing their background is but what I hear or the creation of feeling that I have got from the social media is yes, let's not trust this woman, whatever she says. Whatever she says is just a lie. She's a cheater. She's out there for the money. She's there for the publicity. She wanted the top job. She was jealous of her husband's career. Don't trust her. She's such a fantastic actress. I mean, that's a reinforcement of the news that just comes onto me again and again without knowing the details, without even knowing their history, their background. I've not even watched their movies. I just know that they are stars, they're celebrities from Hollywood. I kind of feel worried about judgment by or trial by internet. That's one thing. And number two, about mistrust of women. That is there kind of subliminal thing about not trusting women or are people, historically, just not trusting women is like, okay, she doesn't know a lot of things, she's not educated, whatever she says, it's not going to make sense. Is that part of it, Colette?
yeah, and you think about any type of abuser, an
Yeah.
abuser is always going to paint the picture that their victim is crazy. And this is just like
Oh,
textbook. And so it's really interesting because history, like there's in America, it's like violence against women was just common. Men own their wives, and if they wanted to beat them, you just didn't talk about it because it was the woman's fault.
they just say
So
that you
that's
deserve that because you broke the glass
yeah, right. And
or
so
you didn't wake
because
up the
it's so
children on time.
yeah, it's so ingrained, I think. And so it's
Mm,
really great actually that the Me Too movement happened and so many things are coming out that it's not okay. All of these things that have just been kind of close the door, no, don't talk about this, no one's gonna know. Even like I grew up in the 80s, that's how it was. You know, people were being abused and you just closed the door, nobody talked about it. And so I think it's so important that we keep talking about it. We keep bringing it up because the abuser is always going to make the other person look crazy. And so you see that in this trial. Both sides are trying to make the other one look
Look
crazy.
crazy.
They
Yeah.
had, yeah, they had a psychologist come and evaluate Amber, but then it turns out that that psychologist that said that Amber was like borderline personality disorder, like she diagnosed Amber with these things. She's not even a clinical, she's not even a licensed psychologist. She's not registered.
Mm.
And so then they had
They
another
tried to
psychologist.
just discredit each other.
Right,
Wow.
exactly. And
And
that's what
and,
happens.
and then you do not know what the truth is anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So there's
like
a lot of different.
yourself, were there any instance whereby you doubted your own truth? You doubted yourself, like, oh, maybe it's like it's not that. I'm just making it up. Maybe it's not as bad as I imagined. That does it has that occurred to you before?
Yeah, and that's something that I was told a lot as a
Oh
child.
wow.
You know, like suck it up. You know, you're
Mm,
fine. Or my mom would make fun of me when I cried. Oh, you're such a
mm.
baby. You know,
Grow
um,
up.
yeah. There's nothing wrong. You know, let me give you
Mm,
something to cry about. And so I was very like
mm.
dismissed. And so
Yes.
yeah,
Dismissed.
and so even like though I even like I justify it like oh yeah I was sexually molested, but there's so much worse, right? There's women
Yeah.
that were abused for years. There's women, girls that grew up when they were raped every single day. Like I didn't have it that
Wow.
bad. So
Yeah.
it's like that justification of like oh it wasn't that
Yeah, it wasn't that bad because people had it worse. To
right,
kind of like numb yourself, right?
right.
Um, Final two questions. This trial is made public. Sometimes in Singapore, because you want to protect the women's image and the woman's future, privacy, or her safety, you don't want to put it out in the public. A lot of trial in court is actually closed door. The media does not have access because it's really between the perpetrator and the victim and the outcome of it. And this is put out there into the world. And with even without knowing their background or knowing what's the outcome, I think the process of it, I think it's very damaging to both sides. You've got Johnny Depp, he loses his job, and you have a woman there who probably is going to lose a lot of uh, credibility, image. She's going through a lot of humiliation. The world is like now divided, about her. And how is she going to stand up and face the future to look for a job, for example? I don't know. What do you think? What do you think, Colette?
Yeah, and I think that's an important topic because a lot of women don't come forward because they don't want to even see their abuser again. They
Yeah,
don't
that's
want to
true.
take him to
Yeah.
court because then they're going to have to see him and talk about it and say everything that he did. And that guy is scary. I mean, he abused this woman. So a lot of victims don't come forward just for that reason, even if it wasn't a public thing, even if no one
Yeah.
else knew, just for the fact that she's going to have to be in a room with this abuser again, who's now she's traumatized,
And you have to relive that in the public, and the whole world knows that you are abused in the worst sense. I mean, Amber Heard, she's really been abused in the worst sense. Colette. Okay, I think we have lost Colette there. We'll probably have to have her come on again. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll come back on the show tomorrow with Colette, Laurie Gallagher. So, it's been such a deep talk we had ladies and gentlemen.